Good morning, everybody. I'm Christy Hollingshead. I'm a research scientist at the Florida Institute for Human and Machine Cognition, IHMC. I'm also an alum of the workshop. In 2004, I was a summer schooler, and that was incredibly fundamental in shaping my life, my career in NLP. And then in 2008, I was back as a grad student, where Elmar was also leading a team. So the 3 workshops up there have representation here this year. So that was exciting. This summer, I, along with my colleagues Andy Schwartz, Glenn Coppersmith, Dirk Hovey, and the rest of our team, are leading an effort on linking mental health, social media, and electronic health records in order to discover the factors that put us at risk for mental illness, and on the converse side, the factors that protect our mental well-being. We're going to start with an exercise. We've been sitting for a while, okay? So what I would like you to do is go around the room and count from 1 to 4, and then just start over at 1. So Sanjeev, if you would start. Mm-hmm. That makes me 2, and whoever is listening on the webcast, count yourself as 3. If you said the number 4 and you are able, please stand up. Otherwise, just sort of wave your hand. Up, 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 up. Okay, look around. If we represented the global population, you are the people who would be at risk from suffering from a mental illness sometime in your lifetime. If your friend, it's shocking. If your friend, loved one, professor, or student is standing, you also please stand up. Wow. For those watching on the webcast, we have just a couple of people sitting now. So you are the ones who are indirectly affected by mental illness. Thank you very much. You can sit down. All right, so that's kind of a shocking and a bit of a bummer way to start the morning. Thanks, Christy, for that. But what do we care? We're computer scientists. That's a problem for psychologists, right? And it's a bummer of a problem, but we're here at a workshop for speech and language technology, so we're safe from that, right? Outside of those of us who are directly and indirectly affected, of course. Well, psychology directly relies on language assessment. Language plays a central role in clinicians doing psychological diagnoses. As part of that, there's intertwined a reliance on self-reporting, so people being able to and willing to self-report any potential psychiatric symptoms, as well as self-awareness. And imagine that some people may be unwilling or unable to self-report or be aware of their symptoms, indicating this illness. Additionally, getting a diagnosis like this of a mental health condition, which then enables you access to the care that you would need, that requires access to qualified clinicians. And that may be difficult or impossible for some people based on if they're in a rural area or their insurance prevents it. Fortunately, we work in language technology. We are computer scientists, and this language technology we've shown over the past couple of years can be used as an additional tool to help clinical psychologists. This language technology relies on everyday language, particularly what we will be talking about this morning, which is social media language. And so that removes the reliance on self-reporting and self-awareness. It's already there in your everyday language. And we'll show that a little bit. And then finally, using language technology can provide a link to the and a first step to patients who might need that assistance, to notify somebody who might need additional help, and to provide an automated screening measure so that clinicians can scale up their outreach and find the people that need help. So what we're talking about is a revolution. We're talking about using natural language processing for mental health. I don't use that word revolution lightly, but I am quoting my teammate Glenn Goppersmith. So if we can use social media data, SOMI, to define a real-time, non-invasive, cost-effective, quantified measure of mental health, we will revolutionize the field of mental health care. And that's what we're looking to do this summer. So the preparatory work that we've done so far has been a lot of data wrangling. Ooh, I'm going to take that off so I stop catching. And a lot of data understanding. We have a number of different data sets that I'll talk about this morning. They each have a number of different challenges. I'll talk about 2 different challenges and the ways that we are addressing them. All right, so I'm going to walk my way through these data sets and collapse them a little bit. But just to give you an intro to some of the data that we are looking at. Let's start with the Penn social media Somiome data set, or social mediome, or SOMI plus EHR bank from the University of Pennsylvania, where my teammate, Raina Merchant, sent her grad students down to the ER, had them standing in lab coats with an iPad, and everybody who came into the ER was offered the opportunity to enter a drawing for an iPad if they would just take a survey. And as part of that survey, they could volunteer access to Penn researchers to their electronic health record, including the full history, and their social media data. And that includes mostly Facebook, which is why it's so prominent there, but some Twitter and some other as well. We're just looking at Facebook and Twitter this summer. The one of the challenges, which I'll just talk about very briefly here with this data set of the Somiome, are the demographics. So these numbers are from 2015, but the percentages stayed about the same. This data set is largely female. It is from inner city Philadelphia. So the population tends to be black. And the age is around 29. And we'll compare that briefly with some of the Twitter data sets that we're also working with this summer. And it's a little bit different. So we'll need to take into account these demographics when we're doing our modeling this summer. And fortunately, we have some experts in that. So you might ask, who would really volunteer their social media data and their electronic health record? A number of people did. And we're very grateful to them. So here are the numbers on for both Facebook and Twitter, okay, in the 2 different columns, of people who reported using social media and that were willing to share their data. So that's 3,300 people about for Facebook, just 500 for Twitter. And those numbers get reduced as we look at the data that was collected through a data collection process. And if we look at just the users who have more than 500 words, so there are a number of lurkers on social media, as you may be aware, then that takes our number down further. Two of the aspects that we're looking at from the electronic health record this summer are diagnoses and prescriptions. If we look at the number of Facebook posts from the users, on average, it's about 800 posts. People post on social media, and we're grateful. The number of diagnoses per person, remember that we have the full history of the electronic health record. So those, on average, per user, they'll have 109 diagnoses. And per user, they'll have on average 28 prescriptions. The challenge that I'm going to focus on for a couple of minutes this morning about this data set is that there is a big temporal aspect to what we're doing this summer. And we want to be able to detect a change or model a trend over time. And to do that, it's a little bit challenging if there are sort of pre-existing conditions or diagnoses. So we don't necessarily know that if somebody comes in and has a diagnosis of, for example, anxiety, that may not be the first time that they've received that diagnosis. But in order to do change point detection, which is part of what we're doing this summer, we need to know that that's a change. So we're going to estimate whether or not this is likely to be an initial mental health MH diagnosis. So Fatime, who's up at the back, collected this data for us to look at of the patients that have received these diagnoses, these diagnosis codes of anxiety, depression, alcohol abuse or drug abuse, or psychoses, which include schizophrenia and eating disorders. How many patients receive that diagnosis? You can see that in the first column there. Then she went and looked at how many of them had been to the doctor in the pen system before that diagnosis, at least 3 times. So if they've been to the doctor 3 times without having a mental health diagnosis, we're going to estimate that this is their initial diagnosis of a mental health condition, and we'll treat that as a change point. And these are just the same numbers in a graph. So,
do you have changes in the other direction?
Right, so who comes in and has a mental health condition diagnosis and then suddenly doesn't. We can certainly look at those numbers. I don't have them here. It's a little bit, sometimes because they're there for a particular reason, that's the diagnosis that they'll have there. And we want to be sure that they never again have that diagnosis. So it's a little bit more difficult for that, but that would be interesting as well, for sure. So these numbers are, these are the number of users with each of the diagnoses that we're looking at. Not super high, but we've done a lot of work with sort of, on average, about 100 or so users of social media. These are limited to those with 500 words or more on social media in the data set. So we're confident that we can use this data for the summer. It's enough data for our algorithms to work. As I said, we have a big temporal aspect. And so another thing that we were worried about was, can we model language before a diagnosis? And so on average, we do see a number of posts per user a week out from a diagnosis. So we can use that. Or 2 weeks out, or a month out, we have even more data. So we'll be looking to see whether we can use these posts to predict that diagnosis, how far back we have to go, how much data we need. And you'll see that recur in a couple of the other data sets as well. Speaking of other data sets, we have a number of data sets from Glenn Coppersmith's company, Quantify. These are largely based on Twitter, though there's some other social media in there as well. I'm going to start with the Twitter self-stated diagnosis data. where we have over 300 users with a self-stated diagnosis of anxiety or an eating disorder or schizophrenia, along with their matched controls. And I'll talk about what it means to have a self-stated diagnosis right now. So this is data that we've been working in for a couple of years now. A number of us have. So people post all sorts of things on social media, and I'm grateful to them. But they include things like, my doctor diagnosed me last year with PTSD. Hashtag end the stigma. Now these are posts that are made publicly. They must include the word diagnosed for us to find them. And one of the mental health conditions that we're interested in. So here, PTSD or anorexia. We looked at a series of 10. This summer we're looking at anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and drug and alcohol abuse. I think I covered them. Oh, good, I did. There are a number of different reasons why people might post this to social media. Twitter has one layer of anonymization, so it may be a little bit easier to post such things onto the internet. But we also think that we've found that people will post these to end the stigma against mental health, to identify as part of a group. Well, I have depression, so I understand where you're coming from too. To explain their own behavior. I have depression, so I haven't been posting recently, or I've been down lately. And to, as I said, to end the stigma. This chart is a little bit old. We did this for a number of different conditions last year at our CL Psych paper. The ones here we're focusing on are anxiety, eating disorders, and schizophrenia. Those numbers have been bumped up. Like I said, schizophrenia is over 200 now, and both anxiety and eating are over 300. The one thing I forgot to mention about the self-stated diagnosis is that we went through all of those tweets by hand, the ones including the word diagnosed and the condition, and verified that it seemed to be a genuine statement. People weren't joking. They weren't saying that their roommate had diagnosed them as having SAD. They weren't saying that they were diagnosing Maryland's weather as being bipolar today. Threw all those out. Now, of course, in a couple of slides, I'll talk about the challenges with this data set, where we are believing them. They seem to be genuine. Of course, they could be lying. It is the internet. But there seems to be a signal there. So for each of the users that we found with these self-stated diagnosis tweets, we found age and gender matched controls of random Twitter users who, based on automated methods of estimating age and gender based on social media posts, matched our controls. This chart is showing a receiver operating curve and is using only linguistic features to do this classification. Here we're classifying, can you tell a user with a condition apart from their matched control? And you can see that for several of the conditions, we can do very well. If we'd done perfectly, these lines would go straight up to 1 and then all the way across to 1 on the x-axis. They don't do that, but they are mostly above chance, which is this diagonal line here, because we have artificially created a 50-50 data set. So anxiety, which is the orange one and highest up on the up to the upper left, you can see is our most accurate classifier. Eating disorders are the second, and schizophrenia is not too bad, especially at a low false alarm rate here. So we've already seen then that we can do classification on this data. This summer, we're moving beyond that moment of diagnosis, that classification, to do a temporal analysis. Can we predict the onset? Can we better understand why somebody may be at risk of onset for depression or is protected from that? This data is extra biased. It comes with very few individual characteristics, including demographics. As I said, we estimated the gender and age. There's a lot of comorbidity with other conditions. And it's difficult to map this data back to the clinical domain, which we would need to do in order to perform any kind of interventions or to know if there are interventions in place and are occurring. And also to know for sure that those diagnoses are true. If only we had a data set that included diagnoses and social media data. So part of the summer we'll be comparing our work on the self-stated data and lifting it and seeing how it does on the Somiome data set to provide a validation for that work. Another data set along the lines of self-stated is the suicide attempt data. These are users who have stated publicly the date of their last suicide attempt. And the data analysis will be for any data prior to that attempt in order to look and see if we can predict the date of that attempt. And again, matched to age and gender matched neurotypical controls. Here we have this data again is from Quantify with an N of 125. So in general, we're seeing about 100 users per condition with a few extra for anxiety and eating disorders. The graph on the bottom here, I'm showing the mean age of users as estimated here, where you can see the demographics are a little bit off from the Somiome, where here there are many more females. The age is quite a bit younger than the Pan-Somiome data, which was 29. But this data is capturing a very at-risk population. Suicide is the #1 killer of females from 15 to age 30. And we're going after it. Can you guys see these charts at all? They're a little bit light. Okay, good. Great. Yes. Yes. So the one on the left here is the again it's a ROC curve showing the classification, which can be done fairly accurately. Can you distinguish suicide attempters from their matched neurotypical controls? This summer, again, we're moving from classification to prediction, to temporal modeling. And I neglected, I'm sorry, to put the trend line on here, which sort of goes along here. And that data is very hard to see. Where we're looking at, based on 1 day's worth of tweets, whether we can predict that somebody will attempt suicide a number of days out. And you can see that the trend is not perfect, but is getting there. And it's closer, sort of the closer that you move to the date of the attempt. And we'll be looking to create graphs like that for a lot of our other data, with the particularly with the date of the first diagnosis from the EHR. So can we predict a mental health onset or an event related to mental health based off of social media data? Finally, and just briefly, we have data donation or SOMI donation from, again, Quantify at ourdatahelps.org, where this data is focused on suicide prevention. The data is often related to suicide, so loved ones who died by suicide, their loved ones who may have access to their accounts or donating their data with the with the goal of improving suicide prevention. Or additionally, users who have attempted, who have a suicide attempt in the past. The social media data that's being collected, there's a large set of it, including Twitter and Facebook. There's also some other cool data, including wearables like Fitbit and Jawbone and Runkeeper. And there we have many hundreds of users with a variety of conditions. Users who come to this site are asked to take a quick survey. And so that is providing us with a gold standard on, again, we have to trust that they're saying the truth, but it provides us with a gold standard, particularly for a variety of demographics. So we've spent a lot of time over the past several years validating some of this Twitter data. And those are a number of publications from a number of people on the team. But we haven't been able to really validate that this data matches with an electronic health record until this summer. We have two main goals this summer: insight and prediction. Insight is a bit of a tricky one to measure, but we have a weekly clinical panel with a number of clinical psychologists who've agreed to meet us on Google Hangouts for an hour every week, where we can discuss any of the insights that we may have come up with over the week, and they can tell us whether we're crazy or have found something potentially very meaningful. We can then use those discussions to potentially do some feature engineering to drive progress in our prediction. Prediction then is it's a number, we can drive that up. So for change point detection, we're looking for goodness of fit, similarly with forecasting models. So these are the steps that we're taking to a mental health care revolution. By combining SOMI data and electronic health records, we can provide a clinical validation of years worth of mental health work using NLP and social media. Language, especially on social media, is individualized and dynamic. We have to model that in time, and that's what we're looking to establish this summer. And finally, technology based on social media for mental health, it's best in the hands of non-technical users. And so our expected accomplishments at the end of the summer will be that clinical validation, that language, especially social media language, does really provide an indication of mental health. We're looking to contribute to and build a toolkit for modeling social media data, particularly for mental health, particularly modeled over time, both for other natural language processing people, as well as non-technical users. And finally, we're looking to create an increased awareness of the benefit of using social media for mental health. Because we're trying to start a revolution. If we're able to demonstrate that social media data does really provide an indication of mental health and can be used to screen users, to help clinicians find the people who need help, then we can provide those 1 in 4 people with the support they need, when they need it, without invasive or costly measures. And if we can do that, we'll change the world. That's it. We have 10 minutes for questions.
The change point, is there, would psychologists really say there is a clear-cut definition of change point?
No. It is a spectrum. And so that is why part of what we're doing is also time series analysis.
But there is events. They would say that there are
yeah.
events, key events that happen in those lines. That it's not necessarily just detecting a change point directly on anxiety, but the idea is detecting key events in one's life that affect their mental health.
So think less of a single instant in time and more of a couple of weeks where things spiral out of control.
Psychologists don't traditionally have data more granular than every couple of weeks, as well as yes. And so it's possible if there are just some changes that they won't know they've seen.
Find out.
I have a question. You mentioned very briefly that when you were looking, I believe it was the quantify suicide data, but I'm not sure which one. You said you were looking at non-linguistic cues because you obviously didn't want to build a classifier which looks for words like depression or anxiety or whatever. So what are some of the features that show up in these social media? And basically, I want to know a little bit more on the technical level what it is that you're trying to do. Are you going to extract identities? Are you going to look for
I see.
grammatical patterns? Are you going to look for first and second person pronouns? Where is the signal?
So we have found the signal in a lot of, there's been, start from the beginning, Christine. So a lot of the, we found some signal looking at, yes, first and second and third person pronouns, the linguistic inquiry word count categories. So it's a dictionary-based approach. That has not been very, that was not as successful as the more basic, very simple language modeling cues. Where we're really just looking for, it was even simpler than unigrams, we're just looking for sequences of character-based sequences, which have proven to be quite predictive. This summer, we're going a little bit beyond and looking at some semantic information and doing some work on embeddings. We've seen sort of some indicators of patterns that are not being captured by the character language models in terms of capturing sort of extra linguistic information. That's where we're modeling some of the demographic information, which can also provide some signal, but not as much signal as the linguistic cues. So we are very focused on language still this summer.
So the reason I asked is because these are all. Oh, sorry.
But there's one other thing that I don't have your emotion slides, Glenn. Glenn, is that that's in the CL Psych paper? Yep.
So there's a bunch of kind of lightweight stuff, a couple of drips and drafts that have been along the last couple of years. One of which is there's a slight increase in tweet volume just prior to the suicide tip. So how big is that? We don't actually think it's tiny, but there's a small measurable increase. And so just looking at things like tweet volume is going to be one of the things sort of below that. And then also there's like conditional story that's really interesting. I almost don't care what you're tweeting. If you're tweeting at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's interesting psychologically. That might be an indicator of something. What's even more interesting is that crossed with the linguistic analysis. And so there's things like that we're going to be looking at. It's breaking up the language that we're seeing, instead of treating it as a bag of words, treating it as at least a couple of bags of words. To look at how time of day, time of week, whatever it is, cross language might give you something. But
Yeah.
Get what you're getting at? Okay.
Yeah, no, I was getting at that. I was getting at like, a lot of these features are sort of internal to a unit of message, whether it's a Facebook post or a tweet or a retweet.
Yeah.
It's the content of it. And I was going to ask about what I would call metadata. Like
Yes.
you mentioned the
Yes.
time it was posted. I was going to ask things like how many people do you broadcast it to? Because maybe not Twitter, but with Facebook at least, some things are only to your friends, others to the whole world or whatever. The nature of the data, do you post pictures versus do you write? And also things like to whom do you respond?
More the point, who responds to you?
So do you have those data?
We do have some of that data for the Facebook data. We don't have it for the Twitter data.
Okay, so
We can estimate pieces of it from the tornado. It's sort of all over.
So if I post something about an event that's upsetting that your NLP analysis doesn't recognize that it's upsetting, you might still be able to figure that out by the fact that people are responding with expressions of concern. So you have the text of the responses.
We have some, you're getting into the weeds here. You're talking about 12 different data sets here. For some of them we do, for some of them we don't. There will be enough we can at least do some anecdotal stuff. I won't guarantee that we'll have enough to say that definitively. But there is enough, there are various responses in these different data sets that we can look at.
Along the same lines, what I was going to say is I was basically asking about the nature of the data and what you can do with it, because I'm thinking that some of these things might have to do with external events in the world.
Yes.
And your data set as is does not have any of that. Like, somebody reacting to the Orlando shootings.
Right.
Right? So if you had that, then you know much more what this tweet is about.
Well, we have,
Yes. So we.
like a situation like that, we have baseline rates of, what's, of any linguistic feature from just general samples. So when the Orlando shooting happens, there's a baseline rate of how much people are, talking about or using sympathetic words and things like that.
True. What I'm thinking is you don't have, for example, the news coverage of it, which might have many named entities, and you know how they relate to each other.
Right.
The tweet, if somebody mentions Pulse, the news story will tell you that it's the nightclub where the shooting happened, but the tweets may not.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's more information in the world than we are capturing. We could look at things like trending topics. Part of the match control is also matched against time, and that's true for the Facebook, the Pensomium data as well. So some of that might fall out. We're not going to go after news articles. I don't want to add another data set for the love.
In general, given the vast number of enemies out there and their variation, for these kinds of data sets, it's usually better to use a generic model. We have valence and arousal. But certainly words like shooting will trigger many of our pre-trained models to train a much larger data sets. If you can get emotional reaction in generic sense, trying to figure out individual events and their effects tends to require a whole separate collection of data. Focus on that given event. So I think the main one people have looked at is copycat suicides, which are huge, which are triggered by huge events. So I think most of those are out of scope for the summer, just given the summer.
Yep.
Yes, definitely. There's more information that we're
Future years.
next workshop.
Another workshop. More questions?
Maybe you already mentioned it, but are you planning to do any mood swing analysis on the like those?
Are we planning to do any mood swing analysis? What a great question. I really.
Yes, the valence and arousal are, rather than mood, they can be emotion, that's fairly similar. So trying to look at changes in predicted models of happiness, depression, positivity, negativity, excitement levels. So at that level, yes, unless you have a more specific mood swing model in mind, which we don't.
We've also looked at, again with Glenn's latest paper at Computational Linguistics and Clinical Psychology workshop, was looking at detecting emotions and then mapping those over time and looking at the change particularly as related to a suicide attempt. And there was some interesting signal that came out of there. We are additionally looking at sort of swings in, I wouldn't call it mood, but sort of indicators of mental health or mental illness, which we have seen sort of go up and down over time, where people tend to look more like the group that has the condition, or they tend to look more like neurotypicals or not quite like neurotypicals, and that's definitely part of what we're looking at this summer. So it's sort of two answers there.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you mean something very specific with mood swing analysis, but I think we're hoping to capture swings in all sorts of human-related attributes based on the language. Could be mood, could be, we have models of neuroticism, Lyell valence and arousal, Glenn has different subtypes of emotions. And that's where you hope to apply these ARIMA models, common filters to kind of track these sorts of patterns that happen over time and help us forecast the future. If anybody has expertise in that area, we'd love to talk.
More questions for Christy? Thank you very much.
Thank you.